would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first 2017 edition of Real Estate Realities. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I'm the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. I hope you guys have had a fantastic holiday season. It was nice to take some time off myself. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the take time off and go do fun stuff thing. It was more about getting my home ready for being marketed. So we'll talk a little bit about that, the things that have come up on my list of things to do. 'Cause I think it's always good, right? To do the real life hands-on thing and then share what you discover. As always, the very best ways to reach out are going to be at the website at www.therebelbroker.com. Yes, I know I don't need the www. I'm putting it there for nostalgia's sake. It's the first show of the new year, right? From there, you can do a lot of interesting things. You can send me a message, or you can head on over to the store, which is where you can find a pretty good variety of different books. It's an Amazon store right now. It may broaden into other things, but you'll find investment-related books aimed at kids. That's one of the newer things that got added recently. You'll find general real estate books that you can shop for. You'll find books that are in my library personally that I recommend you add to yours. And you'll also find other random cool stuff. I think I have one section of just random cool stuff that relates to real estate, and another one that is less specific to real estate. But it's a great thing to browse around in. The costs are not higher, so if you find yourself needing something from Amazon, you can buy it through that store and not only get what you need at the price that you want, but you can also help the show out in doing so. So take advantage of that. Of course, since it is the beginning of January, that means it is also time to do another $50 Amazon gift card drawing. For those of you that are new to the show, this is something we do once a month where if you take part in a online survey, you get yourself entered into possibly winning this $50 gift card. All you have to do is head on over to therebelbroker.com, click on the big red button at the top that says take the survey to support the show. Use the same email address both times you're asked, answer a handful of questions, and you're done. And then at the first part of each month, we do a drawing. We've already had 3 winners for a grand total of $150. Congratulations to them. And of course, this week we'll be doing a drawing for another $50 for some lucky person who has gone through the process of taking that survey. So head on over. I'm not going to do it today. I'm probably going to do the drawing part tomorrow. So that way this show can sort of be your reminder to go ahead, take part in the survey, get your email address in there, and make sure it's an email address I can reach you at, because that's how I distribute the gift card. So I'll draw a name out of the number of folks who are currently registered on the list. Then I will reach out to you via email to verify that this is an email address that goes to a human being. And once I've done that, the very next email address you get from me will be from Amazon with your gift card to redeem for $50. So it's a great way for you to potentially get yourself an extra $50 at Amazon. It's a great way to help support the show, and I truly appreciate those of you who've taken the time out to do that. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The other thing you might want to do is join the Rebel Underground. Now, that's going to probably become a little bit bigger this year. I've really just been sort of trying to get folks who are interested in getting different sorts of things added to getting exposed to different things that I'm providing. I'm hoping to grow that this year. It was more of a get a list of folks who want to be on the Rebel Underground list first. And then in 2017, hopefully start to roll out some of the things I'm planning for that. But the best way to join the Rebel Underground is to text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. Okay, so now that we've got all the usual house cleaning stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the list of things I'm trying to get accomplished. Now, let's review the process that you should go through before you do what I'm doing. In my area, I am familiar with what time of year homes tend to sell for the highest price, which and that's not a wave a magic wand kind of thing. That's usually a scenario where you've got a blend of low inventory and higher demand. And May is frequently a time when, at least over the last couple of years, that's not very normal. But more people jump onto the bandwagon in terms of potentially buying than folks who want to sell. So my plan was to have my home ready to be marketed in April. So that then, say the last week of April, I could put it on the market, take advantage of what goes on in May, and get the best bang for the buck. And in order to get there, and first you find that date, and then you try to make a plan that'll let you take advantage of that as much as possible. So in my case, part of the assessment process was to take a new, fresh look at my home and try to see the things that would stand out to someone else as a negative. My goal when I'm marketing a home is to minimize the negatives and accentuate the positives so that no one is going to walk out and say, because this is how buyers work, right? For those of you who are in real estate, you probably know this. In fact, you probably perpetuate it in the way that you deal with your buyers. But if you've been a buyer, you know you probably did this when you went and visited properties, right? So let me give you an example. You walk into a house, smells like cigarettes. You walk out, and forever and ever, every time you talk about that house, it'll be the cigarette house, right? The house with the dog stink, it'll always be the dog stink house. The house with the bizarrely fuchsia pink painted bedroom, it's going to be crazy fuchsia pink house, right? So these are all things that you associate with a house that you've looked at that are ones that people want you to buy, but you're walking out associating it with something, an identifier that is a negative thing and profoundly reduces the odds that you're going to make an offer on that house, right? Because what happens on the other end of that spectrum? Amazing kitchen, right? Nice new cabinets, beautiful flooring, nice, beautiful backsplash, amazing lighting, just really well done. That's going to be the kitchen house, right? That's going to be amazing kitchen house. Or master bathroom has really cool jacuzzi tub, heated flooring, something that really made it stand out. It's going to be awesome bathroom house. And you're going to remember that. That's how you're going to remember it. You're tending to remember it by the best thing or the thing that made the biggest impression on you. And it's up to sellers and agents to make what is the strongest impression you get from that house be a positive thing. So that when you sit down at the end of the day, after looking at 4 or 5 homes, the ones that you're looking at again and again are the ones that have that positive reference to it. So that's how you should be looking at it. And it should start right with your online marketing, right? Everything on the online marketing should obviously be complete. You should show everything, but you absolutely should be accentuating those most positive features. Then the drive-by. How does the home look from the street? Then inside the house, how does it look when you walk through it? What are the standout features? And in mine, what I did was I walked through my house and just made note of any little deficiency that I didn't like. And I even noticed some things that even after living in this house for going on just over 10 years now, I'd really just kind of grown tolerant of or ignorant of, just because this is where I come home every day. And I didn't tend to notice a lot of these little things. So I've got a nice long list of little things. A lot of nice touches to make things look just that much better. But there's a pretty good list of things that I'm going to do that are a bigger deal. One big deal is my home. I think for those of you who've been listening for a long time, I've talked through this process before. And one of the things about my home is it's very glass on the front. What's really funny is it's not a modern home. Most modern homes are what you associate with glass. This was actually a home built in the mid-'70s, but it's a 2-story with an entry on the first floor and living on the second primarily. That's where the kitchen and living room and family room and everything are, and there's 2 rooms downstairs. But that entire stairwell to the second floor and a good portion of the large room at the front of the home is all glass. So when you look at the home, it's 2 stories of glass. So clearly that is an issue if you have to replace it. And I had debated whether or not I wanted to do that, and decided I did, just because it's a good thing to point out. It'll increase the efficiency of the home. But that decision is probably the lowest payback for the effort of the other things that I'm going to do. Will it net me more money than I spend in terms of what I get for the home? Most likely. I wouldn't surprise me if it's a wash or I make a little bit of money off of it. But I think being able to say it, because the current windows that are there are all single pane. So the efficiency isn't there, and it shows in my electric bill. That airspace, when it gets super, super cold or super, super hot, is one I tend to avoid because it costs too much to really maintain a temperature there. By taking care of this, no matter what time we're showing the house, the system of the home will be able to maintain a comfortable temperature, and it'll show better. And I can point out that these are dual pane windows that cover the front. And I can also tell them exactly what it would cost to do the rest of the windows because I had the bid for everything done at the same time. Because the rest of the home also has single pane windows, but it's not as big of an impact in terms of the efficiency of the home in those other rooms. The airspace that's contained by these gigantic windows is really much more of a concern. All right. So that's the least impactful. I actually was on the fence about whether or not I was going to do that one. But the other two I think are huge. And this is going to be the common thread for anyone. Because the very first thing you should consider, should I improve it, is your bathroom, your master bathroom, and your kitchen. Those are the two things that tend to sell homes. And in my case, again, like my single pane windows, they are original to the house. So they're from 1975. And it's one of those things where if you can come in and just turn something from a negative into a positive, it completely changes the dynamic of the house. If someone were to come in and look at my house and see the master bathroom and see the kitchen, the impression they would walk away with is that 70s kitchen or that 70s master bath. And that's not what I want. But now, through updates, I can make those rooms far more appealing, bring them up to date, give them higher quality drawers. Back in the 70s, they were building wood on wood drawers. So there weren't glides, there weren't soft close drawers. So all of those things were missing. No under cabinet lighting. Just none of the things that I think a lot of folks really expect from homes of this type in the marketplace. And that's another thing you need to be keyed into. What level, what extension, how far should you go with your updates? Do you want to be putting super expensive cooktops in a home that is priced for the average price in your community? Well, assuming it's not Beverly Hills, probably not. You probably don't need to go to the expense of putting a Viking cooktop in that space, or a commercial quality refrigerator or whatever else. Those things it would be overkill. It would be overdoing it, and you probably wouldn't get your money back. But make sure that the things that you're going to do, the upgrades you're going to make sense for the demographic of the folks who are going to be purchasing the home that you're trying to sell. And so that's what I've been doing as well. And I'm pretty happy with it. The schedule is looking good. The contractor I'm going to use happens to be a family member, and they're currently doing some work for my parents. So in 2 or 3 weeks, I will get them, and they will come out, and we'll just get going on this. Other things that I'm doing, we talked about the front. So I have secured a landscaper coming Wednesday. That's going to get all done. That's going to be a pretty good couple of days of work for them. And then there'll be some maintenance work, and then I'll probably have to do some other things in the front yard just to bring things, just a couple of negative items that I don't like in the front yard, and just mitigate them by making a few small changes that I either will do myself or have someone come in and do it, or maybe my contractor relative will know someone who's good at this landscaping stuff, and I can have them do it for me. Now, something you might ask is, well, how do you finance this stuff? How do you make everything work in terms of making ends meet? Well, there's a variety of different ways you can go, but probably the easiest way right now is to get a home equity line of credit. That's what I am doing. I do have some funds to get started with some of these things, but I'm going ahead and starting off with a HELOC so that when the time comes to really get the work going, I'll be ready for that. Now, bear in mind, when you get a HELOC, it typically takes 45 days for that to come through and before you can start spending the money. You should find that you're not going to have any prepayment penalties on these things. HELOCs tend to be a 10-year loan, so it's interest only for 10 years. And then come the end of that, you've got to either change it into some other kind of loan, you got to pay it off. And make sure you understand what the terms are. In my case, I don't plan on carrying this loan very long. If for some strange reason I do all this work and I decide I really want to stay in the house, well, great. Then I'll just take over that. I'll take over maintaining that loan, and I'll pay it all off over a reasonable course of time, probably long before the 10 years is up. Or, as is more likely, sell the home, pay off that loan along with the mortgage, and move on to another property. So those are a couple of different ways that you can finance it. If you've got some other creative way to go, you can do that. But I think right now, going with the equity that you currently have in a home and leveraging off of that through a HELOC is probably the most reasonable way to go. In terms of other things that I'm going to want to do in the house, full painting inside and out is absolutely going to be on the list. And then all the little details, right? No one should ever walk through your house and hit a light switch and then have nothing happen. Ceiling fans should always be working. All the little things that someone would see casually walking through your home should function as they should. And if they don't, you should make them do that. You want to have that experience be as clean as possible for anyone who's going to come in to buy your home. Now, this is a little bit less impactful right now. Right now, there are not a lot of homes on the market. There are no homes on the market that would really compete with my home. So anyone who's looking to buy in that price range is going to see my listing come up, and it'll pretty much be alone. Worst case scenario, someone else may list at the same time, assuming they're timing it the way I'm doing it. But even in that case, given what I've been seeing over the course of the last year on the market, I'm guessing the number of homes that would come up would be 2, possibly 3, including mine. So not a huge concern for me, particularly since, remember, that month of May is when you tend to get the highest price and homes tend to sell the fastest. So taking advantage of that time of year is pretty much going to pay off for me, I think, in terms of what I'm going to be marketing. So how do you figure all this stuff out? You can sit and say, well, listen, Robert, I don't have access to the MLS like you do for all of these things. What should I do? Well, my suggestion would be to partner up with a reliable real estate person, and you can go through an interview process for these folks. And through that, find someone who can be a partner for you in figuring all of this stuff out. And odds are, if it comes right down to it, you can then pick that they would also be the person who lists your home, and they can take care of a lot of this different marketing for you. And the next question might be, well, do I really need a real estate agent? You know what? And I realize this is a potentially seen as biased statement simply because I'm a real estate broker. So clearly I want people to work with me. But the reality is if you want to get your home on the most used tools to get homes sold, you really need to have it on the multiple listing service. And the only way to make that happen is to work with a real estate agent. And from there, you can decide how far you want to go. Now, I'm a full service agent. I don't do a la carte stuff. So I tend to charge what is a typical commission, which I then split with whoever brings the buyer. And that tends to be 6%. Sometimes I'll do less, depends on the circumstances. But I don't do a la carte. When I'm going to sell your house, I take on everything. I tend to incur a lot of expenses at the front end in terms of advertising and other types of things because I don't just put it on the MLS and let that be what does it. Because my philosophy is the more eyes on your property, the more likelihood you'll have multiple offers, which means the more likelihood you'll get over the typical price that folks get in that marketplace. And that strategy's worked for me for, I don't know, creeping up on 20-something years. And why change it if it works, right? So, but let's say you feel super comfortable taking on a lot of that promotional stuff, or really all you see of value from a real estate person would really be getting you onto that multiple listing service. Well, first, I'd argue you've got the wrong real estate person. If you feel that way, you need to maybe shop around a little bit more for a real estate person. But if that's how you feel about it, there are plenty of real estate firms out there that do a la carte, where they will come in and you can say, I just want you to put on the MLS, and you can cherry pick a few other things maybe that you want them to do. And that's it. And they will charge you a lower than typical fee for that service. But bear in mind, make sure and understand exactly what they won't do. Many times they'll say they will put it on the MLS, but they'll only include X number of photographs, where X is a number far smaller than the maximum that's allowed by the MLS. The MLS should be chock full of high quality images of your home. And what you'll find is that MLS listing doesn't perhaps include photos. So then when you say, well, I want you to include photos, even if you take those photos yourself, there's an additional fee to upload those. So there's a lot of little gotchas. Make sure you understand the details. Make sure you understand exactly what's going on. And make sure that includes not just putting up as many photos as is humanly possible that you'll give them if necessary, but it also includes aggregation, meaning that they're checking the check boxes that make sure that your listing is being forwarded to all the various outlets out there. Yahoo, Redfin, Trulia, Zillow. At least in my MLS system, as a real estate agent, I can check a checkbox that won't do that, that will only let the listing show up on the MLS and it won't show up on any of these other sites. Make sure that's not the case. I've actually had a person who fired their agent who was an a la carte agent and hired me because they were just tired of being nickeled and dimed, right? They'd say, I just looked at my MLS listing of my house and there's no photos. Well, yeah, photos are extra. You just asked to be put on the MLS. Oh, okay. Well, there's no description. Well, yeah, a description is extra. You have to. So just make sure, have them show you an example of what your listing would look like based on what you're buying, because you want to make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for the buck. And not having a whole lot of great photos right on the day that property goes listed is a complete waste, because that means you're showing up. Everyone has search engines running. As soon as your property gets in there, within 24 hours, everybody out there who is a buyer will see that listing. And if there aren't photos posted the very same time that listing goes up and a buyer comes along and can't see photos, you're going to go into the list of home listings that they'll look at later and then may never get back to, because they're going to focus on the ones that have photos. So take that process very seriously. Don't just say, oh, great, on the MLS, fantastic. There's absolutely a quality proposition in terms of what your MLS listing is going to look like when it gets entered by your real estate agent. So make sure to keep track of that. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break for a second. Then when we come back, we're going to talk about 5 home design fads that are definitely out in 2017. Well, at least according to the folks over at Realtor.org. So we'll cover that in a second. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right. Aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We spent the first part of the show just catching you up really on my thought process, what I'm doing in terms of marketing my home. As one other side note, I'm actually pretty happy with what I'm seeing in terms of properties that are available to me when I get my home listed or when I get my home sold. I guess the other update I should give you is I did reach out to the seller on the property I told you I was interested in, where I wanted to try to do a lease option. Unfortunately, they received another offer the exact same day that I approached them, and they ended up accepting that offer. So I wasn't able to get in there and make that happen. I'm toying with doing the same thing about another property. I am just not 100%. It has everything I want in the house, just not 100% sold on its location. I'm very, very sold on it, but it's in Gilroy. Gilroy is absolutely my second choice in terms of cities to be in. And here's why. There's nothing wrong with the part of Gilroy I'm looking at. Gilroy has its issues. I'm not shopping in areas that have those issues, but there's absolutely a stigma with Gilroy when it comes to that being your address. And the other reality is, if folks are going to be looking for rentals, and since they tend to be bedroom communities for Silicon Valley to the north, the idea of being in Gilroy concerns me, because the last time we had a huge downturn, Gilroy was one of the first victims. The place where you saw prices dropping the fastest and no buyers coming out to buy, that was absolutely Gilroy. I can remember looking at properties that were listing at $700,000 in Gilroy that right after the downturn were selling for $310,000. So you saw things in that vein in Morgan Hill, but just not as extreme. So I kind of am in this mindset where I feel like I want to insulate myself a little bit from potential really bad things. In this case, it wouldn't be as bad because the amount of money I'd have into the property, my equity in the property would be relatively high. So even if rents were to drop dramatically based on what I'd be paying per month, I'd still be positive cash flow once I move out to rent the property. But in terms of desirability and ability to turn it into a very profitable rental down the road, I'm liking Morgan Hill better than I'm liking Gilroy. So I'm kind of holding out for something that'll fit in that situation. All right, so what we're planning to move on here to the second part of the show is design things that are going to be out in 2017. Some of these things may even be things we talked about a year ago that were hot in 2015 and we're going to continue to be hot in 2016. Why do we care? Robert, why are you talking to us about design fads? Well, because there's a lot of folks out there that are flippers, a lot of folks out there like me that are looking to what are the most desirable things right now to draw in the interest of the largest number of people. So if you're a flipper, if you're about to become a seller, these are the good things to know because you don't want to end up having a property that has stuff that has gone the way of the dodo bird in terms of what people are looking for. So let's jump in and take a look at their list and see if we agree or don't agree with all of these. The first one is gray, the color. Quote, once the hottest color, gray is now looking gloomy. It's been overdone, according to some. Diversity in the palette will strike a contrast. We may even see a transition from gray color palettes to warmer mochas and taups. Taups, a top. I'm mispronouncing that. I'm sure I am. But anyway, so comments on color, I think that's relatively true. Oftentimes when I've talked about color choices for folks who are doing flipping or folks who are doing selling, I've suggested going with white or off-white or some variation of white. And that's always relatively good in terms of setting the feeling of a blank canvas, giving a home a clean look. I very much favor the lighter colors in darker spaces or hallways. I think that just makes those spaces feel better. But there's also the reality, if you're living in your home at the same time and you have children, white may not be a great choice. It would really stink to get that place all painted up. And then 3 weeks into it, you've got fingerprints running down the walls, which are a huge pain in the bottom. In my case, I kind of went with a super light sand color for the very huge open area in my home. I'm actually thinking about taking that even lighter with the repaint because remember, I will be repainting the entire interior of my home. One other thing to keep in mind is if you stick with the color that's already there, it tends to be easier to walk through a paint job. It tends to be something that you can then work through with one coat. If you're going super lighter, oftentimes that's difficult because you might have to do more than one coat. And in situations like that, let me suggest this. Don't economize on the quality of the paint. If you're going from a darker paint to a lighter, go with the guaranteed one cover or the one go over cover paint, the higher quality paint, because by and large, doing the cheap paint twice is going to look like crap. You're not going to get what you want, and you'll probably have to do more than 2 coats. But if you go for the higher quality paint, you'll typically get a really nice finish, and you'll get it the first time. So it's kind of being penny wise and pound foolish once everything's said and done. I've had this happen a couple of times with clients and with properties I've done before. And the economy of the situation comes oftentimes down to blending that economy with an idea of the quality of what's happening, not just what's the actual cost is of it, because I hate having to do something cheap 4 times that ends up equaling what I could have done once with a more expensive product, right? Okay. Number 2, the glam look. This style's signature is bold whites, bright silvers, and deep blacks, which even have been popular in kitchen and bathroom designs. This glam area is going to get left behind. And I got to tell you, this is definitely a regional thing. I've seen this, but very rarely, and it tended to be in modern homes. I did not see this in homes that have been remodeled in the 90s or 2000s or recent remodels of older homes. And frankly, I think that look is a little bit shocking with the overall feel of a home that isn't a modern style home. And keep that in mind too when you're selling your property. If you have elements of your home that are completely at odds with each other, folks are going to pick up on that. Whether they specifically can tell folks what made them feel weird about that house or not, subconsciously they're picking up on that stuff. So it's always good to have at least a semi-consistent feel, within the house itself, and then also something that's consistent with the style of the house. Number 3 on their list, and this one's an interesting one. I have seen lots and lots of this, and it's shiplap. I'll include a link to what the heck shiplap is. but think of it as what they call it here is how do they refer to it? I kind of got a chuckle out of it. The tacky wood paneling of the 21st century. I just ripped up tacky wood paneling in my kitchen. That just tells you how old my kitchen is, which is obviously from the 70s. And I've just been mudding it up and fixing up all the stuff that I found underneath. But that kind of paneling lasted, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years in the 70s. But boy, does it look crummy now. This shiplap stuff is boards. It's typically horizontal. It looks like if you've ever been in a sauna, right? The wood board that's used is kind of what they're doing. And folks are doing it inside of bedrooms as a decorative feel. I remember the first time I saw it and thinking, man, that won't last long. And apparently it's at least finally decided, or at least the folks who decide these things have decided, that it is suddenly not a hot style any longer. Now, are there exceptions to this? I suppose. I don't think it ever makes sense to do an entire wall or an entire room in this style. I think that what makes sense is I know I've seen where a limited area of a wall where they used reclaimed barn wood, right? But then had some sort of an artistic thing associated with it. So it's got its place, but not as a permanent treatment, I think, in a room. And please don't think that the wood paneling stuff from the 70s is back. I realize they still sell the stuff. I saw a house over the weekend where it was a brand new remodel and they had put in that kind of paneling on one of the walls. And it was horrible. So I don't even know what people are thinking. Number 4 on their list, white on white kitchens. White, and this totally fits in with the glam look thing they were talking about before. I'm not real sure why they're kind of repeating themselves here. Countertops, cabinetry, the floor, everything is white. And the bottom line is that's just too much effort to maintain when everything is white. And I've never been a fan of that monochromatic thing. Again, it may be great if you need to create a space where your kids can shoot the next sci-fi movie, Commando style, and get that really interesting look to the film. But it really doesn't make for a good kitchen experience. And I think that the best way to go on those is typically Pinterest is fantastic. If you want to look for ideas on how to put together an awesome kitchen, look at the photos in Pinterest, and you're going to find an awful lot of interesting stuff in there that I think you can use. They are saying that this kind of stuff is going to go away. Again, the only place I've seen anything like this over the last couple of years has been in super modern homes where that was the thing. There was a whole lot of chrome and silver and white, and if you had in deep blacks in some cases. So that's absolutely stuff that's kind of going by the wayside. But I could absolutely still being sort of a staple in some of the more modern builds. Number 5 on their list is copper. Expect to see less of this heavy metal in 2017. Copper fixtures are another trend on the chopping block in the new year, according to Realtor.com. Okay. I guess that's interesting. I think copper is a nice accent piece, depending on what you're doing. But, I guess it depends. Whenever I see a copper sink tub, right? The actual body of the sink in copper. That always throws me off a little bit. Now, this list actually came from a longer list from Realtor.com, which I will absolutely include here. Some other things they've got on this list are barn sliding doors, which I think are actually kind of good looking, depending on where you're doing them. White on white kitchens we already talked about. Copper. Gray, monochromatic designs. I think that we've already kind of talked about that. The glam look, we talked about that. Carrara marble. I think that's an interesting one because while I think that, for those of you who don't know what Carrara marble is, it's a whitish marble that has grayish streaks through it. And I've never been a huge fan of that style of marble. For me, it feels a little bit too institutional. It feels like what I would expect to see at the showers at the gym or something, maybe an upscale gym. But it's also a very cultural thing. I find that there are some cultures that love this marble big, So it's maybe better to be a little bit more plugged into what the dominant cultural forces are in a neighborhood where you're doing a rehab, or where you're going to do a flip, or where you're going to rent, to determine, or if you're a seller and you're going to do a remodel, what percentage of the buyers out there are sort of fall into a culture where this sort of marble is really big. And it tends to be folks from the Far East, the Middle East, Asia, where this kind of marble is very much appreciated. So, those are things you might want to keep in mind if you're looking at making those kinds of changes. Heavy industrial themes are supposedly out in 2017, just to sort of round out our list a little bit here. And again, I think this is much more of a regional preference. I think the industrial thing would likely very much still have some sway with people in some very downtown urban areas. Go to a suburban area, this kind of stuff probably wouldn't make it. Now, I think our first 5 are actually pretty good universals in terms of things that aren't going to be going anywhere really in 2017. I think some of these other items that were on the more extended list, things to think about, things to consider as possibly heading on their way out. But the reality is I think there are some of these are still going to linger in certain marketplaces. So make sure you understand the ground truth, right? We always say that. Whatever you're doing, whatever ideas we discuss, the most important part is discovering the ground truth for you. And cooperating with a really good realtor is going to help you be able to do that. In many cases, if you're looking at other homes that have sold in the area, you're trying to figure out what pricing you should be using. The photos are going to tell you what sort of style choices appeared to get homes sold the fastest and for the highest amount of money. Because in most states, you'll be able to see how long did it take it to go into escrow, how much did it sell for. Some states don't let you see that, what it sold for price, but at least you can figure out how fast things sold for. All right, folks, thank you once again for spending your valuable time with me. I hope that in return, you at least get some value out of the deal, maybe something you haven't thought about before. Maybe it sparks a new idea, or maybe we discuss an area that you've decided you potentially want to invest in, and that train starts to head out of the station after you've listened to the show. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.